Hey everyone! If you're applying to UNC Chapel Hill's MSW program and feeling stuck on the statement of purpose, you are in the right place. My name is Alyssa, and I'm an application advisor at MSW Helper, where we've helped thousands of applicants just like you get accepted into MSW programs. In this video, I'm going to break down each of UNC's prompts with pro tips, and I'll show you examples of what works and what doesn't. By the end, you'll have a clear roadmap for writing a statement of purpose that shows UNC exactly why you belong in their MSW program. Quick disclaimer, MSW Helper is not affiliated with UNC Chapel Hill, so these are just our tips and opinions. We also always recommend checking UNC's website before you start writing to ensure that you're working with the most up-to-date question prompts, admission requirements, and deadlines. While question prompts don't change often, they can, so it's always best practice to double check. All right, let's get started. We'll begin with an overview. UNC gives you 3 specific section headings that you need to use, each with associated prompts, plus 1 optional supplement. Here's the basic structure. Section 1, Social Work Practice Interests. This one asks why you're pursuing an MSW and what social issues and populations you want to work with. Section 2, Volunteer and Professional Experiences. This one asks how your experiences have affirmed your passion and how they align with social work values, as well as how they've prepared you to be a leader. Then Section 3, Pursuing an MSW at UNC Chapel Hill. This asks what UNC specifically offers that aligns with your goals and how you'll use your MSW to advance equity, transform systems, and improve lives. Also, if you are a dual degree applicant, in this section, you'll explain how you'll use both degrees here. Then there's an optional supplement. But this must be a separate document. It is not a part of your statement of purpose. And we'll talk a little bit more about that one towards the end of the video. In terms of the format they want 3 pages minimum, 4 pages maximum, double-spaced, Times New Roman font, size 12, and you must organize it using these 3 headings. Let's dive a bit deeper into Section 1, Social Work Practice Interests. For this one, the prompts are, why are you choosing to pursue a master's degree in social work? And what are the social issues and populations you are seeking to work with? While the question prompts for this one are pretty straightforward, I find it's quite helpful to see the difference between a weaker answer and a stronger answer using some examples. So let's start with a weak one. I am choosing to pursue a Master of Social Work because I have always been passionate about helping others. I am interested in working with marginalized populations to address issues like mental health and poverty. Through my volunteer experiences, I have seen how important social work is, and I believe I can make a difference in people's lives through this work. I want to work with underserved communities to help them access mental health resources they need. Okay, so what's wrong here? I would say a few things. First, I've always been passionate about helping others. That describes literally every MSW applicant. It doesn't tell UNC anything about you. Second, the issues are too broad. Mental health and poverty. Okay, but what specifically about mental health? What aspect of poverty? And third, marginalized populations and underserved communities. While these terms are aligned with social work, they're also very vague. Who exactly do you want to work with? And then fourth, there's just no personal connection or insight. Why did these issues matter to you? What led you to care about them? Really, this just reads like a generic template. Whereas UNC wants to see your story and your specific interests. Now let's look at a stronger approach. I am pursuing a Master of Social Work to address educational inequity and its intersection with childhood trauma. Growing up, I watched my younger brother, A bright and curious child get repeatedly suspended for disruptive behavior that was undiagnosed ADHD, compounded by anxiety from an unstable housing situation. Instead of receiving support, he was pushed out of school, which only exacerbated his challenges. This experience revealed how educational systems often punish students who are experiencing trauma and unmet neurodevelopmental needs, especially students from low-income backgrounds and students of color who lack access to diagnoses, advocacy, and treatment. I am pursuing an MSW to work specifically with school-aged children and adolescents who are experiencing behavioral challenges rooted in trauma, poverty, or neurodevelopmental differences. My goal is to provide trauma-informed clinical services in school settings while also advocating for more equitable, supportive, educational practices that address root causes rather than punishing symptoms and unmet needs. I am committed to serving middle and high school students from marginalized communities, particularly Black and Brown youth and students from low-income families, who are at risk of school pushout, juvenile justice involvement, or untreated mental health challenges due to systemic barriers. So this one you can tell, there's a difference here, right? Now, I will say this wouldn't be one giant paragraph as I've shown it here. You would want to break it up into a few paragraphs, each with a specific focus. But do you notice the difference? It's much more specific, and it has depth. The applicant identifies a clear social issue, the intersection of educational inequity and childhood trauma, and I guess neurodevelopmental disorders too. They also explain why this issue matters to them through a personal and meaningful story and insights they gained from it. They also name their specific population of interest, right? School-aged youth and adolescents, really, from marginalized communities, which they also are more specific about what that means to them, who are facing behavioral challenges and neurodevelopmental needs. And they articulate very clear goals, providing clinical services and advocating for systemic change. This tells UNC exactly who this person wants to serve, what change they want to drive, and why it matters to them, and why getting an MSW matters. And this is exactly what they're looking for. Building on the examples that we just covered, here are 4 tips to keep in mind for Section 1. Tip number 1, explicitly address why social work. Why is social work the right fit? Why an MSW? Why not another helping profession? And if your interests are providing therapy, this becomes especially important. Why become a clinical social worker instead of a mental health counselor or psychologist, for example? Because they all do therapy, but they approach it in a different way. And you want to show that your approach and values are an ideal fit for that social work approach. Tip number 2, get specific about your social issues. UNC wants to see that you've thought deeply about a particular problem and that you haven't just named a broad field or a broad area of interest. Instead of I'm interested in mental health, say I'm interested in addressing postpartum depression and maternal mental health disparities in Black communities. Instead of I want to work on homelessness, say something like I want to address housing instability among transition-aged foster youth who age out of the system. This kind of specificity shows that you've done your homework and you have a very clear direction, and it also is much more memorable. Tip number 3, name your population clearly. Again, specificity. Don't say vulnerable populations or marginalized or underserved communities. Those phrases are okay. We definitely use them in social work, but they're also too vague to really stand out in a statement of purpose. Instead, say exactly who. Immigrant and refugee families, for example. LGBTQ plus youth experiencing homelessness, older adults with chronic mental health challenges, survivors of intimate partner violence. Be concrete about who you want to serve. And tip number 4, show personal connection or grounded experience. You don't want to just list issues or populations that you think sound important or you think are what they are looking for. Instead, pick something that matters. You want something that you can explain why this particular issue or population matters to you. Did you witness it in your community? Did you experience it personally? Did you encounter it some way in professional work? Maybe it just somehow came on your radar and you learned more about it and you had a passion. What made you care about this specific problem and or population? That personal or kind of professional stake, the connection you have, makes your statement really authentic and memorable. All right, now let's move to section 2. Section 2 is all about your volunteer and professional experiences. For this one, they want you to tell us about how your volunteer and or professional experiences have affirmed this passion for social work, and discuss the ways these experiences align with social work values and how they've prepared you to become a leader. Here's a weak approach to section 1. During my 2 years volunteering at a homeless shelter, I helped clients access resources and provided them with support. This experience taught me the importance of empathy and communication in building relationships, which are critical social work values. I also learned how to work with diverse populations and handle challenging situations. Through my role as a volunteer coordinator, I demonstrated leadership by organizing other volunteers and ensuring our programs ran smoothly. These experiences and skills have prepared me to be an effective social worker, and I will carry them forward into my future practice. So what's wrong here? First, this is really just summarizing what they did. I helped clients access resources, for example. That is just a resume bullet point. It's not a reflection. Second, the insights that are there are quite generic. For example, I learned the importance of empathy. Okay, but what specifically did you learn about empathy? How did your understanding deepen? How did this insight you gained, how is it going to affect your future social work practice? Third, we do see social work values mentioned, but I would say that the connection is quite superficial. It kind of feels like the words were thrown in to check a box, but the meaningful explanation of those values, why they matter, how they appear in context, how they will affect future practice, just none of that's really there. Just saying empathy and communication are critical social work values, it just doesn't show that meaningful alignment. Fourth, I do like that they mentioned leadership skills. It is an easy part of the question prompt to forget, but there's probably a bit of a missed opportunity there because their leadership example is really just about logistics, right? Organizing volunteers and ensuring programs run smoothly. It's not about what they usually really want to see in terms of leadership, which is creating change, leading change, addressing systemic issues. Perhaps there was an opportunity there for them to explain how they leaded some kind of change that ensured the program ran smoothly or fit better with what clients actually needed. Really, all in all, this example just doesn't really show much depth of reflection or a real understanding of social work. So now let's take a look at a stronger example. Working as a case manager in a transitional housing program changed how I understand the role of helper and social work's value of service. I initially believed that connecting clients to enough resources would help solve their problems. I soon learned the real barrier was a maze of disconnected systems, each with their own eligibility rules, heavy documentation, and operating hours that assumed clients had reliable transportation, childcare, and flexible work schedules. One resident, a single mother of 2, needed mental health care, job training, and childcare support. Each service required separate applications, and the only available mental health appointment conflicted with her work schedule. When she missed an appointment, she was discharged from the program. I watched her give up, not from lack of motivation, but because the system made accessing help nearly impossible. This experience strengthened my commitment to the person and environment perspective and to treating clients as experts in their own lives. It showed me how even well-intentioned systems can still reproduce harm. I began advocating for flexible appointment times and coordinated intakes with partner agencies. This work taught me that meaningful change requires both direct service and systems advocacy, and that leadership in social work means bringing client voices into the spaces where decisions are made. So why is that one much stronger than the last one? First, they show a specific shift in their thinking, right? There's actually some vulnerability there and some self-awareness and reflection, right? Moving from a more simplistic view to understanding systemic barriers, and even how, in this case, systemic barriers can very much be present even in social service settings and even within social work settings if we're not careful. Second, they explicitly connect their insight to social work values, right? They talk about service, which is one of the 6 core social work values that we see in the NASW Code of Ethics, which is the guiding document with ethical principles for the profession in the US. We also hear other things that are very much fundamental values in social work, right? The person and environment perspective, seeing clients as experts, self-determination, challenging structural inequities. Third, they demonstrate leadership, not through a formal title as leader, but through actions they took, right? Advocating for policy changes, training others, addressing systemic issues. This shows depth, it shows values alignment, and leadership capacity, even if they didn't have a formal leadership position, right? In fact, in this example, we don't even know if their advocacy was successful. If it was, I would hope if you have room, you include that. But we see that they take initiative to lead change, which is awesome. That's exactly what UNC wants to see. Building on that, here are the top 3 tips to keep in mind for Section 2. Tip number 1, show insight, not just activities and skills. Don't write, I volunteered at X organization where I did Y tasks and gained these skills. Instead, write about what you learned and how it changed your understanding and how it will impact your future practice as a social worker. I find that there's a bit of a kind of helpful formula that you can use here, which is, here is what I initially thought, here is what happened that challenged that, and here is what I learned and how it shifted my approach. If you follow that formula or something quite close to it, you're gonna show reflection and growth, which UNC values highly. Tip number 2, explicitly connect to social work values. Don't just mention values in passing, show how your experiences deepened your understanding of them. You can also think about things like referencing the National Association of Social Workers Code of Ethics. You can find this on their website, you can Google it, you'll find it. There's multiple values such as dignity and worth of the person, importance of human relationships, social justice, competence, and integrity. And on the website, they have a little bit more of a description of each one to help ground you. For example, this experience reinforced social work's commitment to honoring client self-determination, even when their choices differ from what I might recommend. So you really want to make those connections to values in social work, whether they're the ones from the NASW Code of Ethics or ones that are related to them, like self-determination. You want to make them super clear and specific and connect them to your future practice. Tip number 3, reframe leadership as creating change, not just managing people or tasks. When UNC asks about leadership, they don't necessarily mean, were you in charge? What they really mean is, how have you worked to advance equity, to challenge systems, or to improve outcomes? Leadership can look like advocating for policy changes in your organization. It could look like training colleagues on trauma-informed practices, organizing community members to try to address a local issue, conducting research that fills a gap, speaking up when you see injustice. So there's lots of ways you can show how you've led meaningful change, even if informally, right? Like that's what we're really looking for when we say leadership in social work. Now let's tackle section 3. This one is all about program fit. They want to know, what does UNC CH offer that will help you reach your career goals? How will you use your MSW to advance equity, transform systems, and improve lives? And if you are a dual degree applicant, please explain how you plan to use each degree or training to address the social issues and populations you've identified above. A weak example for this one would be, I am pursuing UNC Chapel Hill because it has an excellent MSW program with a strong reputation. I am drawn to the school's commitment to social justice and its experienced faculty. The program will give me the skills I need to become a licensed clinical social worker, using my MSW to help underserved populations access mental health services. I also plan to advocate for increased funding for social programs. UNC's field placement opportunities will allow me to gain the hands-on experience I need to achieve these goals. What's wrong with this one? First, excellent program with a strong reputation. That applies to dozens of schools, and it doesn't show that you've really done any research about UNC. Second, there is no mention of specifics, what actually makes the program unique, maybe specific curriculums, electives they have, concentrations, faculty members, or other unique program features. Third, I plan to help underserved populations access services. So vague. How will you advance equity? How will you transform systems? Fourth, mentioning field placements without any kind of specificity about it or connection to the goals. Really, again, just presenting them very broadly and vaguely shows that you haven't really researched where UNC actually places students or why it's important. It also doesn't make UNC unique. You're going to do a practicum at any school you apply to. This really is one that could be copied and pasted into pretty much any MSW application, which isn't great because UNC wants to see why their program specifically is the right fit for you. So let's look at something stronger. The University of North Carolina Chapel Hill's clinical concentration offers exactly the training I need with its focus on integrated social work practice. Dr. Smith's research on implementation science and child welfare connects closely with my goal of linking clinical work to systems change. I am especially excited about courses such as child and family practice and health and mental health practice, which will strengthen my evidence-informed clinical skills. I also look forward to policy and advocacy coursework that will prepare me to address the barriers I've observed in educational settings. UNC-CH's partnerships with local school districts will allow me to apply trauma-informed practice in the environments where I hope to work. I am eager to support students directly while learning how school-based mental health services operate within larger educational systems. Through my MSW, I will advance equity by helping students from marginalized backgrounds access high-quality, culturally responsive mental health support without requiring private resources. I will advocate for school policies that respond to behavioral challenges with support rather than punishment. I will also provide direct clinical services that contribute to school environments that are safe, healing, and just. So this is much stronger than the last one. I will also mention that there is no Dr. Smith with their research on implementation science in this area, and the courses are made up as well, so do your own research. And in some ways, I think this answer could still be even stronger by being more specific about what the goals are they're connecting to and various other little specificities they could add. But let's reflect on why this one is much stronger. First, they name a specific concentration and explain why it's a fit for their goals. Second, they mention a specific faculty member and their research area, showing genuine engagement with UNC's program and connecting it to their goals. Third, they reference specific courses that align with their interests. Whenever possible, look for courses that are quite unique to the school. There's some courses like, say, social policy that you're going to take in every program, but then there'll be some electives or unique ones that really you might only find there. And fourth, they mention specific field placement possibilities and why those matter. Fifth, they articulate concrete plans of how they will advance equity, transform systems, and improve lives with their MSW, mentioning specific actions, not just vague statements. And this all just shows a deeper amount of research and very clear thinking about how UNC specifically is going to prepare them for their goals, right? Why UNC and not another MSW program? So based on that, here are the top 3 things I want you to keep in mind as you're working on your response for Section 3. Tip number 1, do your research on their program. Go beyond the homepage. You really want to look at things like the different concentration areas. Think about which one aligns with your goals and why. Look at the curriculum for that concentration. Are there any courses that are really strongly aligned with your goals or are quite unique and aren't offered elsewhere? Look and see, are there any specific faculty members that have research interests that very much connect with where you want to go? Are there course offerings, like I mentioned, especially those unique electives and things like that really excite you? Do they have unique field placement opportunities or partnerships that fit really nicely? Do they have any other special initiatives? Sometimes schools will have things like global social work practicum fieldwork opportunities. Sometimes they'll have themed and kind of topical research centers that might be of interest to you if you have any research interests. Sometimes they have other unique aspects. So look for those, as well as things about what makes this school's mission quite unique, and think about how these things connect to where you're going. You really want to explain how these specifically connect to your path and why they are the ideal place to prepare you for your goals. You don't want to just name drop, you want to make meaningful connections. Tip number 2, be concrete about how you'll advance equity, transform systems, and improve lives. UNC is using this language very intentionally. They're looking for systemic thinkers. You don't want to say things like, I will advocate for change. Instead, say how you'll create change in your specific area of interest. For example, maybe you'll say in terms of advancing equity that you're going to do it by ensuring immigrant families have access to mental health services in their native languages with culturally responsive providers. If you're thinking about transforming systems, maybe you'll say you'll do it by training hospital staff on implicit bias and designing intake protocols that don't re-traumatize survivors. In terms of improving lives, maybe it'll be by providing trauma-informed therapy while also connecting families to concrete resources like housing and legal aid. Be specific about the actions you'll take, whatever those may be. And then tip number 3 for the dual degree applicants, show how both degrees work together, not separately. Don't treat them as 2 parallel tracks that you're doing at the same time. Look for the ways that they are going to work together and synergize. For example, let's say someone was doing the MSW and the MPH. They might say something like, the MPH, the Master's in Public Health, will give me population-level analysis skills to identify health disparities, while the MSW ensures I remain grounded in individual trauma-informed practice. Together, they'll prepare me to design community health interventions that are both evidence-based and culturally responsive. So you're showing an intersection there, you're showing a synergy, you're showing awareness that these things are going to work together and really prepare you for your goals in a way that one or the other wouldn't. And lastly, there is the opportunity to include an optional supplemental document. For this one, they ask you to please address any specific academic or other issues that you would like the admissions committee to consider when reviewing your application in a supplemental document. This response may include anything not covered in the statement of purpose prompts that may assist us in making an admissions recommendation. Please include this additional document in the program supplements section of the application and not as part of your statement of purpose. So, first off, I know some applicants feel that they have to include something for every potential prompt, even if the school says it's optional. But I want to push back on that. I recommend only using this if you have something important to say that hasn't already been covered and adds value to your application. Use this to explain things like a low GPA by giving relevant context, or career gaps or transitions or other unique circumstances that the committee should know about. Don't just use it to add more content or to elaborate on something you already covered or talked about earlier in the statement of purpose. If you don't have anything significant to address here, if everything else has already been addressed in your statement of purpose, it is completely fine and actually recommended to leave this section blank. It truly is optional. And remember, this must be a separate document that is uploaded in the program supplement section. Don't include it in your statement of purpose. All right, let's wrap this up with some key takeaways. Number 1, be specific everywhere. I know I said specific a lot of times because it's important. Be specific about your social issues, your populations of interest, your goals, the vision you have for what you're going to do after the MSW. Specificity shows intentionality and depth, and it really helps make your statement stand out. Number 2, show why experiences mattered, not just what you did or the skills you gained. UNC wants reflection and growth, not a resume in essay form. Number 3, explicitly connect your experiences to social work values. Think about things like referencing the NASW's Code of Ethics and show how your work, your approach, your experiences, your values align with principles like dignity, justice, competence, ethics, self-determination, all of those good social work values that we like to talk about. Number 4, do research on UNC. You have to know what makes their program different from others and what makes it ideal for your goals. Why go to their school instead of another one? Do things like naming specific faculty, concentrations, courses, field opportunities, other aspects of their program that are unique, and explain why these aspects matter for your career. Make these connections meaningful. Number 5, articulate a concrete vision of how you'll use your MSW to make an impact and how you're going to use it to drive social justice. We really, really, really care about social justice and social work, as I'm sure you already know, so you want to make sure that impact is clearly there. Be specific about how you'll advance equity, transform systems, and improve lives. Number 6, use the 3 required headings that UNC provides. This makes your statement easy to follow, ensures you address everything they're asking, and it shows that you can follow instructions. And I recommend putting those headings in your document in general in APA formatting, which is what we use in social work. And number 7, make sure you have 3 pages minimum and 4 pages maximum double-spaced. Don't go over, and make every sentence count. If you do these things, your statement of purpose will show UNC not just that you're qualified, but that you're thoughtful, intentional, and genuinely aligned with their mission. These are the things that really help you stand out and make your statement memorable. I hope you found this helpful. We have a full written guide that goes even deeper into each prompt with more tips on our website, along with a free personal statement template, which is a really helpful tool to help you get your experiences and insights down on paper and make some connections to help as a first step. You can find both of these on our website, which is linked in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck with your UNC Chapel Hill MSW application.